Jim, your call, that this is a buying opportunity, I really do feel isn't it a consensus call. I mean, I think, we're in the midst of earnings season. You're hearing from a lot of CEOs saying, look, I've got a forecast for tariffs. I've got a forecast for no tariffs. People are cutting guidance. So from a CEO perspective, not that they, are good forecasters of the market, they're concerned. I think you've got hedge funds that are basically performed somewhat flat to up. I feel like, again, you just got back from New York. Is your view out of consensus, or are more people leaning towards what you're saying now?
Oh, out of consensus, everybody's in the bunker as they usually are, right?
Okay.
But
Yeah.
so what do we hang our hats on? So demographics point to a secular bull market until early next decade, right? I've been in this business long enough to realize that you really have to ask yourself the question that given the pullback that we had in April, will leadership really change? Have themes change? And look, at AI is going to be the largest theme that you and I are going to face. Okay. So how
Mm-hmm.
do you play that theme? Blockchain's going to be massive, right? The question about the US dollar and US treasuries as a store of value globally puts Bitcoin at the forefront. So all these themes that we had before are there. And I guess the mistakes, if you survived as long as I have, where the mistakes are is you get off the winners, right? So my
Yeah.
suggestion is just be calm. We have the themes, we know what's going on, and let's just let cooler heads prevail. And when the
Mm-hmm.
Fed starts to cut rates, when Mr. Trump or President Trump starts to get deals, people are going to basically start putting money to work. And then in 6 months, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
hear the easy money was made if you would have bought in April, May. And you and I have seen
Sure.
this trade so many times in our career. So yes, it's
Mm-hmm.
time. The time now is, what did Buffett say? Get greedy when everybody is fearful, and get fearful when
Yeah.
everybody's greedy. Everybody's fearful.
Yeah. I still, that's fair. I do still think that that is the sentiment in the market. I mean, you're seeing it day in, day out. In addition to tech, then, what other areas look interesting? And two that have come up to me, small caps, even though I don't dabble in that too often. I mean, you really have to get that timing right. And then also regional banks, because I think that the administration does want to see the strength of regional banks to help the lending and the growth of small business in the United States. Do you buy into those two themes?
So let's attack the banks first, right? So like we
Okay.
mentioned before, we've got 4.33% or like about 440 for banks to basically put money at the Fed and do nothing. So President Trump and Secretary Bessent have been on the record saying they're going to deregulate banking, right? And we're going to get back
Right.
to pre Dodd-Frank. We're going to get back to think of before global financial crisis. They're going to
Hmm.
exempt treasuries and near cash instruments into what are called the supplemental loan ratio, which means Jamie Dimon can take all that money that's sitting at the Fed and they can trade a prop. Now, you being an old bond salesperson, right? We're going back to the old days where they can make money. And why is that so important? Because it's a new line of revenue for the banks, but it also provides a massive buyer of US Treasuries, as opposed to the regional banks. Yes, you have heard Mr. Bissett say that they're going to deregulate regional banks so that there can be money creation or credit creation at the local level. So yes, you
Mm-hmm.
really want to get an exposure, a barbell approach of a, a big company like a JP Morgan and an M&T or a PNC, because there's deregulation in the United States happening. But here's the through
Okay.
line. It's not clear to me, given what happened with TD and the money laundering and the slap on the wrist that they've got, that Canadian banks are going to be able to participate in that. So what are Canadian
Agreed.
banks going to do? Right? How are they going to grow book? Right? Canadian banks on a book basis are very, very expensive. And they've been growing book by going to the United States. So, yes, the American banks, high quality regionals, high quality money central, they will be able to grow book. I would be in that
Hmm.
bucket of, yes, you have to buy US bank. That's not to say that the Canadian banks, the dividends aren't safe. How do they grow book? And I just don't see them growing
Understood.
book right now.
Yeah. And Jim, never to correct anybody. I don't like to do that. But I was actually in equities. I appreciate you thinking I was in bonds because apparently the smarter people are in bonds. But I was in equities. But more to the point, so I'm clear. You think they're going to bring prop trading back? Yes or no? We'll pick it up on the other side.